Good afternoon, everyone. Derek here, back with another video. Today I'm going to do something different. I'm going to be talking about why I love/respect hip-hop. Now, I don't normally do stuff like this on my channel. I do a couple album reviews here and there, but I decided in between the gameplay, I want to do something very important to my life and, my kind of hobbies, I guess you could say, and talk about, a type of music that I'm very popular about. And I do have some notes on my side here on my laptop from OneNote, because I noticed with my vlog style type of videos, I'm not good at articulating my words very well. So I decided to say, screw it, I'm going to do some notes. And my first thing is, I'm going to talk about the beats. Now, I love hip-hop because one of the reasons is because of the beats. You have boom bap from like the late 80s, early 90s. You have kind of mid-tempo, kind of in-between, kind of, what do you call it? Hybrid beats. Like, you have the kind of boom bap, but also kind of clubbish at the same time, if that's the word. And then you also have the straight up, like, trap, newer beats, 808 beats that you have nowadays. And of course, people kind of sprinkle that in there. A lot of experimentation going on. There's even dubstep beats people use with hip hop nowadays. But I like to say boom bap is definitely probably my favorite out of those three. I like the main three that I kind of split up. Because boom bap is just amazing. You have a simple drum beat, and then you have the bars and the lyricism behind it. Especially from the older days, like the late 80s, early 90s, perfect. Even mid-90s, perfect. And then we get to struggles. Yeah, this is something I really want to talk about. Hip-hop, to me, is about struggles in living life. That's the main part about hip-hop to me, is, struggling to survive, struggling in your neighborhood. Like, a lot of people who write their own lyrics, a lot of people don't do that nowadays. A lot of people who write their own lyrics, especially back in the late 80s, early 90s, were writing about the struggle with the police and the struggles with trying to stay alive and, the ghetto and stuff like that. And I can respect a lot of artists for that. That's one of the reasons why I respect hip-hop, because people speak their minds. They get in front of a mic and they wrote down some notes, some lyrics about their real-life experiences. And a lot of it isn't about just them. It's about stuff they see around. Like, an example of that is Biggie. When Biggie wrote Ready to Die, and, before he died, he wrote his, the double album. He was writing about stuff that happened around him, because he wasn't really poor. He was in a middle class family in New York, but he saw what was going on, and he was like, okay, he kind of took bits and pieces and wrote it in his notes. And I think it's pretty cool how, that's one example of how it didn't happen to him, but he wrote about the shit that was going on, and that's pretty cool how he's able to do that. And I would like to say another thing here. One thing that pisses me off about people in general that judge hip hop. People will just say, oh, it's about, gangsters and violence and degrading women and drugs and selling drugs, and they, about violent activity and gang violence, all that good stuff. They just say all that under one. But what people don't understand is that hip-hop isn't just about that. They fail to peel back that, the layer of skin of the orange, and they don't want to look inside the actual orange of hip-hop. They don't want to look inside the actual flavor of what it is. Hip-hop is supposed to be about life struggles and, just having a good time and, writing down your experiences. And that's what I like about it. That's why I respect, a lot of artists like Tupac and Nas and Biggie and Jay-Z, J. Cole, Ritz, just to name a few. Trying to see if I have anybody else here. Logic especially. They all are storytellers. They're all lyricists. And they have some badass beats to back it up, but they also tell a story. That's what I respect more than anything. You tell a story. That's why I don't really like the whole crunk kind of thing that came up in the late 2000s, 2008, and, Soulja Boy and, mid to late Lil Wayne, and I'll get to that later. But that's what I hate about people. They'll say, oh, hip-hop's just about, drug violence and stuff like that, and people with their pants hanging low and everything and dropping out of school. It's not all about that. People just fail to lift the veil over it and see what hip-hop was supposed to be about. Because when you listen to artists like, NWA, especially late 80s, early 90s, their music almost put them in jail. And I believe it did put them in jail for a good amount of time. Like, they banded together because the LAPD were assholes at the time. And they were bullying people around. I watched the movie NWA. It's a very, accurate representation of what they went through. You literally see people, they're actually looking out the bus window ready to go on tour, and they see people stomping on their records and their CDs. Because CDs were still pretty new at the time. It was like, late 80s, early 90s. CDs were still pretty new. People were stomping on their records and cassette tapes and CDs, and they were burning them and everything because they were thinking these people were the Antichrist or whatever, because they were putting out this music. And honestly, some of their most heartfelt music in hip hop. Like, you can definitely tell they're struggling. As soon as you put that tape on or that CD on, you hit play. You listen to Straight Outta Compton. You hear those words, and you know that they're coming with a vengeance. You have that passion. You have that motivation. That's why they wrote this. They wrote that album. They didn't do it to make money. It was motivation. It was motivation for them to write the music. That's why they did music in the first place. That's why I like artists to have a reason to do the music, not just for money. Like Ritz, who's an awesome storyteller, Logic, Tupac, Nas, Biggie. They told stories. And of course, it didn't really happen to Biggie too much, obviously, like I said earlier, but even he was a lyricist and a storyteller. And that's really what I like about it in the first place. What got me into hip-hop in the first place. And I'm actually talking about the period of the hip-hop that I really like the most. I was talking about earlier with NWA. I really generally like mid-90s hip-hop to mid-2000s hip-hop, because that was like the sweet spot for me. Like, I'm pretty much like a decade. 95 to like 2005, 2006, give or take. Because you had good artists coming out with great hip-hop, and you had new experimental stuff, and it was a great time for music, nonetheless. And I'm actually going to get on a little bit of a tangent. This isn't in my notes or anything, but I have a friend who used to run a game store, and he actually had another friend named Adam, who he hates any music that came out after December 31st, or December 30th, depending on the year, 1989. He hates anything that came out in the 90s and after, no matter what it is. He just hates it. He doesn't like any music past 1990. And it's like, how could you be like that? There's so much good music that came out in that time. So much good stuff. Never mind hip-hop, just everything else that came out in the 90s, 2000s. Like, there's still good music that comes out today. A lot of good music. A lot of good stuff comes out today. And I hate people that are so close-minded. And I have other friends who just like country music and that's it. And I despise country, but I will respect you if you like it. Like, I'm not one of the people who's going to sit there and hate on you because you have different musical tastes than me. But don't judge something without at first listening to it. Listen to the music. Listen to the message. I like music with a message. And that's what hip-hop is about. Music with a message. And a lot of artists still do that to this day. There are other artists that kind of just write club music just to get money and get fans and stuff. But a lot of artists in hip-hop, especially in the underground scene, or even like strange music especially, will have a story to tell. And that's what I like. And, rap duos like Cess Crew, you have, the African-American guy and you have the white guy. And they have two different styles, but they are so good together because they have different struggles and different lyrics that go with it, different experiences. And that's really what I enjoy about them as a whole. And they're like probably my favorite rap duo. So yeah, so there are artists and albums like Lil Wayne. Like I said earlier, Lil Wayne, he came out with The Carter 2 back in 2005. And that album was amazing. I have it on CD, sealed. Great album. But 2007, 2008, when he dropped The Carter 3, at least in my opinion, he really went downhill. He went from greatness to kind of like shit. Because The Carter 1 and 2 were story albums, like novels, basically. Hip-hop, a lot of hip-hop albums like that are, musical novels that you read with your ears. And you listen to it. As soon as you put that tape on, you hear that first beat or the first bars. And it's like, this is going to be a storytelling album. It's going to be a great experience. And of course, you do have tracks that break away from it, like Fireman and The Carter 2 and Go DJ and The Carter 1. But for the most part, especially Carter 1, he talks about building his own business, Cash Money Records. And building it, he literally says he built it from the rocks, which is like the bars and like the foundation of the building. He literally built his business from the ground up to make himself a self-made millionaire. And he goes on to talk about stuff like that in The Carter 2 as well. And while I don't like The Carter 1 as much as number 2, I still like them both. But you get to Carter 3, and it's like he drops any sorts of like storytelling, any type of like lyricism, minus a couple songs here and there. He favors more club beats, more crunk, more, just kind of more, I don't know, it's kind of more shit compared to his earlier releases. Just not as much of the lyricism there as I would have liked. And I went back and listened to that record. It's just not as good as Carter 1 or 2. And I could be biased, but I like Carter 4. He kind of brought back some of those elements. Like the Carter 1 and 2 had 3 songs that had the same beat but different lyrics. On Carter 1 you had, I think you had Walk In, and then you had Inside. Basically, you walk into the Carter, the building. And, you walk in. Basically, the whole album, the first 2 Carter albums are like you are inside the Carter, the building, basically. And you explore the building throughout the whole album. And you actually explore this building through your ears. And it's pretty cool. And then you have Inside toward the middle of the album, where you're actually inside the building. That's pretty badass. And then you have the last track, which is called Walk Out, which is the same beat as the other two, but he raps a little bit differently and has different lyrics in them, and that's how the album is ended. That's pretty awesome. I like that. And then the Carter 2, the first track is called The Mob. It's basically a 5-minute intro. He goes off for 5 minutes. Probably one of the best songs he ever written, if not the best track Lil Wayne has ever written, in my opinion. But then you have, I think you have Carter 2, and then you have Fly In, and then you have Fly Out. Which is awesome, because instead of walking, you're flying, because he's more of a millionaire than he was in the Carter 1. And I think it's really cool, because he literally made more money, and he basically expanded his business. Because back then, I think 2005, when he created Young Money, so he now has pretty much 2 businesses under one roof. And I think that's amazing. He's able to get new artists like Drake and Nicki. And I don't like Nicki Minaj that much, but my fiance really likes her. And I can respect her because she does have some good lyrics here and there. I just don't really like how she kind of does the high-pitched stuff. Not really for me. But I do appreciate that women can do hip-hop too. I think it's been long due for a while, women in hip-hop. There's only a few women that actually do hip-hop and do it well. And I think she does it well. I just don't really like her music that much. So no offense to any Nicki Minaj fans, but I don't really like her. But I like Drake. He's one of the best artists on there. He's probably the best artist, in my opinion, on the whole Young Money, scene. Minus Lil Wayne, but I think he's on both. Don't mind me getting my throat a little dry there. Damn. But yeah, Carter 2, masterpiece of an album. It just sucks. Carter 3, you have club tracks like, Lollipop and Get Money with T-Pain. And T-Pain is like the epitome. T-Pain and Lil Jon are like the two epitome of why hip-hop kind of died, if you will, in the mid-2000s. It got so bad that Nas, one of the best rappers of all time, literally wrote an album called Hip Hop Is Dead and a single called Hip Hop Is Dead. He's literally hanging over a grave with a rose, and the whole album is full of symbolism and lyricism like no tomorrow. I used to have the album, I don't have it anymore, but I'd like to get it again. It's one of Nas's best albums in my opinion, because he really went hard on why hip-hop was dead and why these clowns are making fucking music and getting money out of it for having these ridiculous lyrics. And I like that, because I think it's really important that he actually came out and did that, because that was a bold statement to make, especially in 2006, but he did it, and I gotta give him major props for that. And before I end this video and end my thoughts, I like to give you my top 5 hip-hop artists of all time. This isn't any particular order, it's just my top 5 right now. Maybe this will change over the years, over the months. But I have Ritz, Logic, Nas, Tupac, and J. Cole. Because J. Cole, especially lately, has been more of a storyteller and a lyricist, and I definitely love his new music, so I'm excited about that. But what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to turn it behind me, and I'm going to show you my hip-hop collection. Now, I do have other CDs. I don't just listen to hip-hop. I listen to a whole bunch of stuff. I have, punk and grunge and stuff in there. I don't have too many CDs, but the first one I'm going to show you guys is the Carter 2. This one's actually sealed, and I have a couple sealed. And this is the album I was talking about. This album is amazing. Actually, I was wrong about this. It starts out with The Mob, but it actually starts in with Fly In, and then it has Carter 2 in the middle, and then at the end it's Fly Out. But this album is his magnum opus, his masterpiece. I encourage everyone who likes hip-hop, who has never really listened to Lil Wayne, and thinks he sucks now, which he does, but would kind of actually want to go back and listen to his actual great material. I think this would be the album to actually pick up, because this is some of his best and most well-written material to date. And this came out more than a decade ago. Alright, so next, we're going to actually do my Jay-Z album, because these ones are actually, I'm going to go in alphabetical order here a little bit. I got Jay-Z's Volume 2, Hard Knock Life. This is an album, man. Let me tell you, this album is great. From the intro to If I Should Die, Ride or Die, all the tracks on here are pretty well written. And this is kind of when Jay-Z started to become really, really important as a hip-hop artist. Like, he had Reasonable Doubt, which was his first album, which was a great album in and of itself. But this is when he started to really flesh out and kind of do his own sound away from... Because Nas kind of helped his sound grow a little bit. And I feel like he really came into his own with this album, along with the next album, Volume 3, Life and Times of James S. Carter, or Life and Times of S. Carter. Don't know why I said James. But this album is another great one. I don't think it's as good as Volume 2, but it has a lot of great tracks like So Ghetto, Dope Man, S Carter. So many good songs on this. Especially it's cool it has an intro and an outro. And I guess there's also hidden bonus tracks, which I actually didn't know because I don't listen to the CDs. I just kind of collect them. But yeah, another great Jay-Z album. And then we got another one he's well known for. 2007's American Gangster. They actually made a movie out of this. Well, not out of this, but they made a movie kind of based on the album. And this album is really cool because he's really known for having a lot of features on his records. But this album, he only has 3. He has Lil Wayne on Hello Brooklyn. He has, let's see here, Ignorant Shit with Beanie Sigel, who's on the Rock Nation now label. And then he has Nas, actually, because this came out after the beef, on Success. Really good album. I would like to say every song on here is pretty magical, pretty good. Really good Jay-Z album. Like I said, not as good as Volume 2, but still really good. And I don't even think I don't like it as much as Reasonable Doubt, but that was kind of more 90s boom bap. This kind of takes more of a modern approach, or at least 2007 modern approach, but it doesn't go Lil Wayne Carter 3 levels, so that's good. Which is kind of funny because Lil Wayne's actually on the record, but... Now we're starting to get to the gold here. I'm going to go in order, from chronological order. I don't own Illmatic, which I know is a crime. I don't own Life is Written, which is a crime. But I do have I Am. Or actually, no, not It Was Written. It was written, not Life Was Written. It Was Written. But anyway, I have I Am. This is the album where people thought Nas really sold out. Because he came out with like the puffy coat and, you know, was with Puff Daddy and stuff and doing all that gangster shit. But this was like an album that was very underrated, especially now, you know, especially back then, but I think nowadays a lot of people have come around. I actually did a review of this album on my channel, like, a couple years ago, like, maybe a few months ago, I don't even know at this point, it's been so long, and this album's really good. You have the New York State of Mind Part 2, really, really great track. Hate Me Now, which was a track a lot of people gave him flack for, but I actually think it's one of the better ones. Got Small World, Favor for Favor, We Will Survive, Ghetto Prisoners, a lot of great songs on here. Let's see. Nas is Like, probably one of the best songs he's ever written, along with Undying Love, which was actually one of his amazing storytelling type songs, again, in that same vein as stuff on Illmatic. And the album gets a lot of hate, but I still like it a lot. Really great album. And again, I have it sealed, so it's good for me on that one. Now we got to the real gold. I'm still pissed off because this CD case looks like shit, but I got Stillmatic. This album was great. Jay-Z basically dissed Nas on a track. I forgot what it was called. It's in my head, but I can't exactly remember what the track was called. But he came back. Nas came back with Ether, and he basically won that beef with this one track. And it's the second track on the record. But this whole album, from front to back, is amazing record. Now, real quick, I'm going to show you guys. I actually have the book here. It's supposed to have a deluxe CD. But guess what? The asshole who sent it to me didn't have the deluxe edition. Didn't have the disc. So I'm kind of pissed off about that. But I only spent like $3 or $4 on it. And it's cracked. Because he's supposed to have the Lost Tapes, which is like stuff he never released off of I Am and Stillmatic and a couple other records. And it's supposed to have like a kind of snippets. It has one full song and snippets of other stuff that's on the Lost Tapes. Like, you know, 10, 20, like 20-second snippets of the songs. And it's not in there. So I'm kind of pissed off. But whatever. So it's not a big deal. And then we got Godson. This is the album that came out after Stillmatic, and this is actually the album very symbolic because this album came out when his mom died. Like basically, when he's writing the album, his mom died. So there's a lot of emotion and a lot of sympathetic vibes coming from this album, and that's what I like about it. He's very heartfelt and very soft-spoken on this record, but he's also very passionate. And you can just tell by the album cover, he's like in really deep thought, you know, and kind of mourning, and I like that. A lot of good songs on here, like Get Down, The Cross, which was actually produced by Eminem, so that's pretty cool. One of Eminem's first kind of production credits. Made You Look, Book of Rhymes, which is basically the same, like talking about like rhymes he threw out, he didn't really use. Pretty cool. Thug's Mansion, New York, basically like, it basically has a verse from Tupac before he died, and he put it in there, and it's basically like the New York version of Thug's Mansion from Tupac. A lot of good songs on there, a lot of good features. You know, you got Braveheart, you got Alicia Keys on here, and then you got Tupac, I guess, like I said, but it's kind of just a leftover verse that was there after he died. But this album is so good. It sucks because the CD case is the plastic's off there, a little hinge. So I gotta put a new case for it. I'm actually not even sure where that shit went, to be honest. But now here we get to, I have this one actually sealed. This is the self-titled album from Nas. This was actually supposed to be called the N-Word, but it didn't go over so well for obvious reasons. But this album being untitled actually kind of adds to the mystery of it. Because if you don't know about the backstory, you don't know. Because if you just think it's untitled. And it's great. I mean, it has a lot of symbolism. This album is basically about slavery and the tough times. This is the true meaning of a historical album. And I apologize for the glare. But this is has a lot of songs about slavery and the contributions of African Americans in society and in history ever since slavery. And I think it's amazing how they actually had, he's talking about how African Americans actually helped make the American flag. He's saying, I bet Betsy Ross had a black man to help her make the flag. And I think that's really cool. There's a lot of good songs in here. Like, this actually came out right around the time that Barack Obama was sworn in as president. So I think it's pretty cool. There's actually a song in here called Black President. There's We're Not Alone. There's Make the World Go Around. Can't Stop Me Now, which is basically like a Black Power song. Amazing, amazing track. Queen Get the Money, which is an amazing kind of orchestrated piano intro. Great album all around. He actually has a kind of like a diss to Fox News, which is awesome, called Sly Fox. So they like to lie about everything. Fox News is horrible. They lie about so much shit. It's unbelievable. But this album, great. Like I said, I wish I owned Hip Hop Is Dead, because I really want to get that sealed. And last but not least, I have an album I forgot I owned. My fiance Nicole bought this for me. Yellow Wolf and Love Story. This album is a masterpiece that kind of blew me out of the water. I wasn't expecting anything that great. I first heard the singles American You, and I heard Till It's Gone, and I heard Box Chevy 5, which is probably the best song on this whole record, towards the back half of the album. But this album is the true definition of a amalgamation of genres. Yellow Wolf before was more of a trap rapper, but in this album he has more of a country influence. I know I said earlier I didn't really like country music, I kind of despise it, but if you have an artist that knows what they're doing and they can amalgamate two different styles, and it goes well, because he has hip-hop and he has kind of southern rock country influences on this, like American You, Devil in My Veins, where he's just singing the whole time. It's just clean vocals. He's got stuff like Johnny Cash, where he's kind of rapping but kind of singing at the same time. Best Friend. The only feature is Eminem on this, and Eminem kills his verse. Amazing verse. Just so many great tracks on this. I'm actually glad that Nicole picked this up for me, because this record is amazing. And I can't wait to see what he does next with his sound. But this is how you do a record. This is how Kid Rock should make his records. Not his Rock and Roll Jesus and fucking, Born Free and, Rebel Soul shit. I mean, if you like that, more power to you. But I don't like that. I actually like this type of sound. I mean, if you're going to do country music with hip-hop, this is how you would do it. This is how it's supposed to be done. And this album is awesome. From front to back. I only have maybe 2 or 3 tracks I don't like too much. But as a whole, the record is really well done. And Yellow Wolf knows what he's doing when it comes to taking 2 genres of music, maybe even 3, and putting them into one album. I mean, you think the album's going to be totally different, because it starts out with Outer Space. That's like the only true hip-hop song minus Box Chevy 5 on this thing. It's the only song that's not really amalgamated with the kind of southern rock country vibe. And this album is just a masterpiece in my mind, and I cannot wait to see what he does next. And yeah, it's going to do it for me, guys. That's my album collection, my thoughts on hip-hop, why I love it, why I respect it, and calling out people's bullshit on why they hate it for not even they're just judging it for face value and not actually listening to it or looking past the album covers. So hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys around for some more music and some more gameplay, and stay full, people.